Hi, this is Dr. Jane Pendleton with my husband, Dr. John Pendleton, and we are back with Maranatha Minutes. We want to thank you for joining us and for tuning in. And today we are on Genesis chapter 43. We're moving right along through Genesis, and we are glad that you are joining us. Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. People are joining us. We just love to have you along for the ride, and this is really exciting. We have our seed saving series, our Homestead series. Of course, we have Maranatha Minutes, that's where you're at now, a series. And that's our travel and our journey, our Bible study through Genesis and through the Bible. We're going to go into Exodus, and we're going to start in Mark as well, because we have some requests there. So Genesis chapter 43. John's going to be Judah. Now the famine was still severe in the land. So when they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father, Israel, or Jacob, said to them, "Go back and buy us a little more food." But Judah said to him,
"The man warned us solemnly, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother along with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, because the man said to us, you will not see my face again unless your brother is with you.'"
Israel asked, "Why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man you had another brother?" They replied,
"The man questioned us closely about ourselves and our family. 'Is your father still alive?' He said to us, 'Do you have another brother?' We simply answered his questions. How were we to know? He would say, 'Bring your brother down here.'"
Then Judah said to Israel, his father,
"Send the boy along with me, and we will go at once, so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I myself will guarantee the safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life. As it is, if we had not delayed, we would have gone down and returned twice."
Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them down to the man as gifts. A little balm and a little honey, some spices and myrrh, some pistachio nuts and some almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put back into the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also, and go back to the man at once. And may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, so that he will let your other brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, I am bereaved. I am bereaved." So the men took the gifts and the double amount of silver, and Benjamin also, the other youngest brother. That would be Jacob's real brother through Rachel. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, his real brother, which they didn't know that he knew that, he said to the steward of the house, "Take these men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare a meal. They are to eat with me at noon." The man did as Joseph told him and took the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were frightened when they were taken to his house. They thought,
"We were brought here because of the silver that was put back into our sacks the first time. He wants to attack us and overpower us and seize us as slaves and our donkeys."
Take their donkeys. So they went up to Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the entrance of the house.
"Please, sir," they said, "we came down here the first time to buy food. But at the place where we stopped for the night, we opened our sacks, and each of us found his silver, the exact weight, in the mouth of his sacks. So we have brought it back with us. We have also brought additional silver with us to buy food. We don't know who put the silver in our sacks."
"It's all right," the steward said. Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your silver. Then he brought a Simeon out to them, which was their other brother, the one that they left behind. They brought Simeon back out to them.
Now they thought they were about to get
their... The steward took the men to Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, and provided fodder for their donkeys. That's grass, you know, fodder. They still have that today. Like a big grassy pad of grass. The good stuff. They prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon, because they had heard that they were to eat here. When Joseph came home, they presented him the gifts they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. Asked them how they were, and then he said, "How is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living?" They replied,
"Your servants, our father, is still alive and well." And they bowed low to pay him honor.
They prostrated themselves. They went down like that and paid him honor. As he looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, you know, this was his real brother, was Benjamin, the youngest. "Is your youngest brother the one you told me about?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his own private room and wept there. After he had washed his face, he came out and, controlling himself, said, "Serve the food." They served him by himself, the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves. Remember, Egyptians thought that the Hebrews were beneath them, so they ate at separate tables. So he continued to look like he was an Egyptian. He probably had his head shaved. He probably had the ponytail. I mean, he was Pharaoh's right hand over all the land. So he would have looked very Egyptian. They didn't recognize their own brother that they had sold into slavery. They didn't even recognize Joseph. But he was playing with their feelings, wasn't he? He wanted to know if they had changed. He was trying to see if they were still, if they would be willing to give up his own brother. And he wanted to meet his brother.
Yeah.
And he wept. He wept for the brother that he didn't get to know yet. So the men had been seated before him in the order of their ages, from the firstborn to the youngest, and they looked at each other in astonishment. When the portions were served to them from Joseph's table, Benjamin's portions was 5 times as much as anyone else's. So they feasted and drank freely with him. Okay, that leads us to 44. So we'll read that here next. Okay, so how do you think Joseph was feeling? I mean, he left and he had to go weep somewhere in his private chamber, so nobody knew how he was feeling. And, I mean, he was seeing his brothers, the ones that sold him off into slavery. He was seeing them for the second time. He didn't trust them all the first time. Then they came back for more food. And they hesitated. Israel, or Jacob, that God now calls Israel, he wasn't wanting his last son from Rachel, his true love Rachel, to go with them. But he had to feed the family. They were starving.
There was a famine in the land, and it just began. A lot of people, in reference to this area, there was famines periodically, but this famine was very severe. It had a definite change in the course of history, and the history of the Jewish people and the history of the Egyptians. Well, he produces
good out of the bad.
Out of the bad.
That's right. But he brought Joseph from slavery into different households where he was respected, and God still fulfilled, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but God's still in the process of fulfilling his promise to Joseph. And that was his promise. Remember the code of the colors?
Yeah, he had a dream that his brothers would bow down before him. He also had a dream that
and did they not do that
the
here?
sun, moon, and the stars, his father and his mother, and the other different matriarchs of the family would also give him homage.
Right.
We'll let the story unfold.
And what happened here? They bowed down to their brother. So that part of the dream happened. And they said they would never bow down to him. You know, they sold him because they thought he was high on his own horse. But they bowed down to him here, and they didn't even know it was Joseph. He's still dressed like an Egyptian.
No, they're set in order of age. How did he know?
Yeah, how did he know how old they were?
The youngest one gets portions that they didn't get, and they're not jealous though. They just feast and they're happy, and they thought they were going to have to pay for their sin, and the steward told them no.
And they're still afraid he's going to keep Benjamin. They're still afraid. They got to get Benjamin home back to their dad because he thinks Jacob is dead.
We're having a nice meal. We're going to get out of here just as soon as possible.
Well, we'll see what happens in the next chapter. So be sure and stay tuned. Be sure and hit that subscribe button, and we will return in a little bit.
Blessings.
Blessings.
Blessings.